Thank you so much. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen, but I can't while you're sharing yours. So we could just end yours.
Sorry.
No,
just a second.
Yeah, I'm really excited this morning. Thank you all those. It's your early morning over there. So really excited to be on this presentation with you. Can you guys see my full screen now? Just making sure. Yes, you just put a yes in the chat. Yes. Can you guys see my full screen? Sorry, just making sure.
I think we're still saying Mia's.
Okay, you were saying, oh, I'm getting, okay. Some people said no. Okay, yes, now I'm seeing yes. Yes, no.
Okay, just a second. So this is, I
can stop and reshare.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
You're
just
still,
trying to figure out how.
You can maybe make her a co-host. That might work.
It doesn't have anything to do with that. I think that
it's saying you still have you're sharing your screen, it says. Can you guys see my screen now? Nope. Okay. You just shut it down.
Can you try sharing now, Holly?
Sure. All right, let's go ahead and share again. All righty, are you guys able to see it now? Yes, nice. I can now. Yes. Okay, perfect. Great. Thanks. Okay. Thanks for helping work that out. All right, so yeah, I'm really excited about this presentation because I am very passionate about this, and I am really excited about the change that I see in grant writers' lives when they start freelancing. And I just want to start and really set the stage here because a lot of you guys might be like, but I love my job. Of course, you can keep your job and freelance, okay? So I just want to set that disclaimer right at the top, but these are reasons I really think every grant writer, whether or not you're in a nonprofit, working full-time, a volunteer, whatever, or have your own business already, you need a freelance. And this is what I'm going to show you exactly what the opportunities are and everything. So a little bit about me, if you guys want to grab that QR code, you can definitely see some things that I have available. My name is Holly Rustick, as Mia said. I am the creator of the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the Grant Professional Mentorship Program. Those are my two signature programs. I'm also a former full-time grant writer consultancy agency owner. As I mentioned, I'm the coach and the CEO of the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the mentorship. I'm also co-creator of the Nonprofit Consulting Conference, and my co-creator is on right after me, so I'm really excited. That's Mandy Pierce. You guys are going to hear from her today. She's amazing. I'm also the best-selling author of grant writing books. You can see the one behind me and also here on my screen that is also used in universities around the world. I've been a federal grant reviewer for 10 years. I've been a grant writer for 20 years. I'm also the podcast host of the top-ranked grant writing podcast, Grant Writing and Funding, that has more than 450,000 downloads. And on the business side, so yeah, you can see I've been doing a lot with grants. I've been doing a lot with nonprofits. I've spent a lot of my life in this area. But I've also spent a lot of my life in the business arena. So I'm the past president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. I'm also I was program manager for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Really passionate about combining business and nonprofit work. I myself am a for-profit owner, but am I also serving on the board of a nonprofit? Yes. Do I also do work to help nonprofits grow and the industry grow? Absolutely. I totally believe in it. But I do believe that there's a crossroads where we can really meld well together. And that's my beautiful daughter in the corner with me. So. All right. So I want to know about you. You heard about me. Thank you for listening about me for a minute. I want to hear about you now. So I want you to definitely put in the chat what it sounds like for you. Who are you? I want to know who you are. Maybe you're a newbie grant writer or curious to learn how to write grants. Maybe you write grants inside a nonprofit but are interested in starting a side or a full-time consulting business. Maybe you're a freelance grant writer already or a nonprofit consultant, but you're not really making any money or consistent money yet, and it still feels like your business has no structure. Or you're an experienced grant professional, but you just want to grow your business. So whatever resonates in here with you, or if it's something else, put it in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat real quick while you guys are putting it in. You can put 1, 2, 3, something different, very green, growing your business. Seeing a lot of 1s, new to grant writing. Hey, welcome, newbies. I love it. Okay, some people have 4s. 2 and 3. Okay, yeah. I see some people, Eric's like 2 and 3. 2 for community college. And the chat's growing up. I'm not able to read all the chat, but I just want to get a feel. So this is definitely resonating with you, like the 1, 2, or 3 or 4, right? So you're definitely falling under this kind of category. Now I want to ask you another question, okay? So, so now we have our letters here instead of our numbers. A, you're thinking about starting a grant writing business and you want to do it the right way without the struggle and overwhelm. B, you want to build a business around what you know, but you fear nobody will pay for it. C, you might have imposter syndrome and feel like you could overcome this if maybe you had someone reviewing your grant proposals. Or D, you're not really confident in pricing your services. Or maybe you have a business, but you're just burning out and you're trying to figure out how to grow it. Which one of those or combination of those do you kind of resonate with? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, so, I saw some, all the above, Amanda says. Yep, I'm seeing a lot of the above, A's and D's. E's, okay, I saw it, yeah, a few E's. Yep, and E, and E, all right. Okay, yeah, so a lot of combinations. So this is definitely resonating with a lot of you. So no matter where you fall in this area, we're going to be talking to who you are and maybe one of your or more than one of your struggles today. All right, so thank you for sharing that with me. And I definitely like to be interactive with the chat. So I see it all out there. So after being a grant writer for 2 decades, as you see, owning a company for 10 years and training thousands of grant writers, what I've discovered is that 1, grant writing is a skill that is always in demand, okay? 2, freelance grant writing will give you stability and control. I might have triggered some of you just by saying that. What? You're saying freelance will give you stability? Isn't that the opposite? We're gonna break that down on why this is true. And 3, grant writing, freelance grant writing will provide freedom and it's gonna provide choice, right? So we definitely wanna see how this all works, right? So it's going to provide revenue. That's a part of that choice. So we're going to be talking about these 3 things today. My goal in this session with you today is for you to know that freelance grant writing is a career transition that allows you to have a skill that's always in demand, have stability and control, and have freedom and revenue. How does that sound to you? Put it in the chat. Does that sound good? Do you want to hear about these things today? Yeah, and don't forget to share your questions with the hashtags. Thumbs up. Yes, sounds good. Awesome. Okay, so definitely I have labeled this the right thing because that's what I wanted to talk about today. Your transition into freelance grant writing and why this is so important. All right, so what makes this session different? This session is going to take you from feeling stuck to feeling empowered. And that is so important, right? And I've interacted with hundreds of beginning grant writers, aspiring freelancers, and seasoned consultants. So why I put A through D and understand your pain points is because I work with so many of you in those different areas, right? And I've seen that this 3-step process works. And I've also seen that those who are the most overwhelmed don't have this information that I'm going to share with you today. That they get stuck and stay stuck is because they don't have this information. So the information I'm going to share with you today is really for you to understand that there's opportunity, but more important that to believe it and to feel confident in moving forward. All right, so once again, we're going to go over grant writing is a skill that's always in demand. Then we're going to look at freelancing is going to give you stability. And then we're going to look at freelancing providing freedom and revenue. And then I'm going to invite you to a masterclass I have coming up and you can get more information. And then we're going to open it up to Q&As. All right, so that is our strategy. That's our process today and where we're going in this next 45 minutes that we got. So let's go ahead and get into it. System step number 1, grant writers are always in demand. This is all about, this part of our session right now is all about why you should feel confident in your skill, okay? So let's talk about this because it's empowering. If you don't believe that you're always in demand, and this is why I want to start here. So I'm just going to kind of sidebar for a second. Why I want to start here is because if you don't understand the value you have as a grant writer, when you start freelancing, you're going to go into those conversations, you're going to give deep discounts. You're going to second guess yourself. You're not going to value yourself accordingly. You're not going to market yourself because you're going to think, I don't know, do they even want this? There's so many grant writers out there. You're going to start thinking and believing these things where it's not even really true, right? So we need to know like how powerful it is. And this is the information that is going to maybe help you even get started in your freelance grant writing career. And it's going to help you when you need it to stand up for your pricing, to help you understand how to price, to help you understand how to take your time to market, etc. Okay, so this is really important. Overall, there's 1.8 million nonprofits in the United States alone. So a lot of you might even not be in the US. There are many more around the world. And of those 1.8, 1.5 million are 501c3 organizations. And those are ones that are more incorporated at a certain level where they have a lot of eligibility for different grants. Okay, that's right there. There are not 1.5 million grant writers in the United States, that's for sure. So there is a lot of opportunity just in the sheer number of organizations that are eligible for grants. Okay, now let's look at this. Nonprofits employ 11.9 million people in the US. That's a lot of people that they employ. Nonprofit industry is the third largest employment industry in the United States. So a lot of people think, oh, nonprofits, they're just kind of like little charities and they don't have money to hire anyone. That is BS. All right, that is complete BS. They are a part of the GDP. They are one of the largest employment industries in the United States. 5.7% of the US GDP, more than $1.7 trillion, is within the nonprofits, dedicated from the nonprofit sector. That's powerful. There is money floating around. They get grants, they hire people, they rent places, you know, all of the things, they buy product, right? So they definitely are a part of the economy, and that is really important for you to know. It's not just all volunteers out there, right? There's a lot of money that is floating around, and they are a business. Yes, nonprofits are a non-profit. That means the profit goes back into their business, but they are a business. They even have to have registration here, incorporation, right? The 501c3. So they also have, yeah, so I already said that 5.6 to 5.7%. Nonprofits also one of the fastest growing jobs industries in the United States, went from 16.7% from 2007 up to, or from 4.6% all the way to 16.7%. So definitely a growth. And there's definitely other CARES Act, where we all have the money from COVID. There's a lot of money still floating around out there that needs to be infused into the economy still. So, and there's also private donors, right? It's not just all about federal government. There's foundations. There's also these new kind of landscape, the grant landscape with private donors coming in, Mackenzie Scott, right? We've all heard of that. And we've heard more about like social enterprise, social corporations, all those types that are also really wanting to have more meaning into the world and giving more funding to nonprofits and that sort of thing. So definitely there is a lot going out there in demand for nonprofits and specifically for grant writers around this. So now let's like really nail down the grants. That's kind of like giving you the nonprofit landscape. Really important to know. Let's go ahead and nail down federal grants. Now what I'd like to do is nail down this from federal grants, and I need to go back to 2019 to show you, because COVID is kind of an anomaly, right? But we need to understand what's happening with the funding right now. Do we think it's running out? Do we think it's drying up? Do we think there's less than before? So let's take a look at this. In 2019, so we go back pre-COVID, there was the federal government gave out 458,000 plus grants, federal grants, okay? It's quite a few grants. Now that totaled 4.7 trillion, including fixed charges. So quite a bit of money. In 2020, do we think the number of grants went up and the number of funding went up? What do you guys think? Put in the chat. Yes, no? Brittany says yes. I got one yes. Went up. Amanda says, oh, yes. Okay. But how much? Oh, so Jason says a lot. Okay, let's go. Let's look at it. 482,000 grants. And so that's, you know, that's a sizable number of grants. Some of you might have thought there was more grants, but look at the money. 6.8 trillion. So even though it didn't go up substantially in the number of grants, although that's still a lot, it went up dramatically in the amount of money that was given out. And that makes sense, right? So 2021, what happened? Was there a decrease? No. Then there was a huge jump, even more, because it takes time with federal to get through, blah, 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 right? So now we're kind of seeing the outlay of COVID. It was still going on. Now 570,000 grants. And how much money? 7.5 trillion. So that's when the money, or the amount of grants, really started rolling out. Yes, the funding still went up as well. What about 2022, right? 2022, let's see what happened. Well, the amount of grants went down a little bit, but still way up from pre-COVID. Still, they're still kicking out money, and the amount of money is still quite high. Yes, it has gone down from 2021 a little bit, from 2020, but even from pre-COVID, it's still up there. So there's definitely still, this is just looking at federal grants, and Instrumentl is going to drop in some data for you on foundation grants. But definitely something for you to think about. Like, there's still money out there. There's a lot of money out there. It's still going to be infused and allocated for years to come. And there's a lot of organizations that still need to apply for those grants. They still need to get out on those, and they need you as a grant writer to help with that. Okay. So in just some other, this is old data, and that's why I wanted Instrumentl. I said, hey, you guys got all the data in here. So if you want to drop some new data in this, you can go ahead and put it in there. But up to 2017, there was 88,000 private foundations in the United States alone, right? That's quite a bit. And you can see the trend was growing. So even in 2020, we saw foundations indicated a 45% increase in the total dollar amount granted, and a 2% increase in the total number of grants. Now, what that means, right, is they gave out more money, kind of like the federal government did in 2020. They gave out a lot more money, and they gave out a little bit more grants, but they were funding people they were probably already funding, but just giving more money for support. But we see the growth in 2021. Now we're starting to see the percentages go up by foundations, including U.S. Charities and all of that. So whether it's federal or foundation, we are seeing the number of grants increase. We're seeing the amount of money increase, right? And let's see if, yeah, and then Ryan put in there, yep. Instrumentl database has over 200,000 funders and 12,500 active opportunities for nonprofits, right? So definitely there is a lot of grants available out there. All right, so now that you have the landscape of nonprofits, the growth of nonprofits, the growth of federal grants, the growth of foundation grants and giving, now here's the other thing. Grant writers are always in demand. And what I like to say is, here is the best party trick for a new, for any type of grant writer, is you're at a networking event, people say, what do you do? And you say, you could say, oh, you know, I'm whatever. But if you say, I'm a grant writer, chances are 9 times out of 10, I would almost say 10 out of 10, you get someone who turns around and gives you a double take and says, what? I need your card. That is what I said. That's the easiest way to get clients. Just go network and give them your business card, because it is a skill that either they know somebody needs or they need themselves. And it's just something that they are like, that's kind of like mythical, and it's very difficult to do if they don't know how to do it, right? So it sounds like this unique thing, which it is. It's amazing, but it's also something that's very like pragmatic. People know what that is, even if they have no idea how to write grants. They're like, oh, you like get money for people. There's something attached to that. So definitely try it at a party and you will see that you are always in demand. People always ask you what you do. The other thing is, everybody knows somebody who needs you. Whether that's, you know, your friends you hang out with and they know people, your family members who know people, your neighbors, your dog walker, whatever that is, right? If people at your grocery store, you know, all the things that you run into, like everybody knows somebody that knows a nonprofit that needs funding, that needs a grant writer. It's very easy to start talking to people and seeing the need right away. And one thing I did want to talk about is AI. All right. So I don't want to open a can of worms here, but one thing that a lot of people say, well, grant writers won't always be around because now there's AI and it can just do all the grant writing for you, right? So I went ahead and I put this link here. If you guys want to take a picture of this, this is a podcast I did with Philip Dang. And he has a company that's all about AI and grant writing. And this is a really good discussion to understand where that's going, right? To understand, is AI going to take away all your grant writing jobs? And really, we don't think it's going to, right? But he really has a proven system. He's done a lot of research. He's done a lot on that. So I brought him onto the podcast to really talk to you if you have those fears. And also I had some questions too for him. So that's something you're really interested in. Do check that out, because it is really important to say that's a valid fear. It's a super valid fear, right? To say, is AI going to take over our jobs? And a lot of people have a lot of fear around that. I know we're going to be talking at another session, I think on the next day on the summit, we'll be talking about AI and grant writing as well. And that's a really trending topic right now. So definitely that's something that, you know, if you really dig into it, are there ways that you can use AI for grant writing? Absolutely. Are there ethical ways you can use it? Absolutely. Are there unethical ways you can use it? Yep. So you really need to, like, if you are going to tap into AI, or if you're just curious if it's going to take away your job, there's a lot of talk and conversation that it will not, and that you can actually utilize certain components of it in a very ethical way. So I just did want to bring that up because I'm saying, hey, there's all these opportunities and you might have this in the back of your head. And I did too. And that's why I brought Philip on the show, so he can really share with that. So definitely, I don't think it's going to take away your job. So here's the thing is, here, I want to bring in a case study too. Okay, so let's bring into a case study because it's nice for me to share all these facts with you. But unless you really hear somebody's story about grant writing being in demand, you know, this is a little bit more personal. So Deborah Reed, who's in the Freelance Grant Writer Academy, she's actually in our mentorship program now and went through the academy. She came to me and she said, can I really write grants as a skill set? And here's the thing is, if you say, I want to write grants for nonprofits, I talk about all these nonprofits out there. But the thing is you can even be very niched and make a good career as a freelance grant writer in a very niche direction. What I mean by this is Deborah focuses on performing arts nonprofits. Super niche, right? It's not just like nonprofits. She's like, no, I want to bring to my background. Her background is in theater. It's in working in a nonprofit that was a theater of performing arts, and she wanted to focus in that area. And she was like, I don't even know if this is possible. And I said, yes, it is. Actually, when you become more niche, in a lot of ways, it becomes easier to find clients. So she ended up creating an entire business just focusing on performing arts nonprofits in her passion, but that was her passion, right? And it's her experience, her expertise, and all of that. Can she take on other clients? Absolutely. But does she have to focus on them? No, she can just focus in her niche. So if you niche down your pricing and services, you know, you can also do that, right? So it's niching down what type of client you want to serve. And then it's also niching down what type of pricing and services you want to provide, right? So she switched from hourly to monthly or job-based pricing, and that was huge for her, right? She got comfortable asking what she was worth, which really helped stop the pattern of undercutting and feeling resentment towards clients. And she was able to create even a certain type of package, a grant research package, right? So she's also a user, I believe she's a user of Instrumentl as well, to utilize that package for that service. So it's really interesting. You might say, well, Holly, just being a grant writer, that sounds like maybe I can't do it. Look at her. Not only is she a grant writer, but for a specific niche client, and she does a specific package for that specific niche. This is definitely a reality for a lot of grant writers out there. So you don't have to just say, I'm going to serve any nonprofit and work any way just to get clients. No, there is no scarcity. We saw the number of nonprofits out there. We saw the number of grants out there. You can tailor it and customize it to how you want to run a business. All right. So that's my opening of how grants are available, and that it's always in demand. Not is it only in demand, but it's demand on how you want to run your business. Number two, let's talk about the triggering one. This is a fun one. All right. When I say freelancing will give you stability and control, what I really want to focus here is why you can start a freelance grant writing business. Okay. So let's get into my spicy belief here. Grant writing and funding. We have a spicy belief here, and I love it. And that is every single grant writer must start a freelance grant writing business, even if it's just on the side. And I'm going to go over why, because right now you might just be like, well, I just volunteer as a grant writer. I'm just starting to write grants. Really? Even me? Yes, even you. Okay. Or I have a full-time job in a nonprofit and I love my job. That's great. But I still think you must start a side business even. Just open something up so you are ready. And I'm going to show exactly why. All right. So we're going to talk about inflation. Talk a little bit of the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, nonprofits favor freelancers, right? I'm going to talk about this, why this is so. All right, so let's look at one of the reasons here. All right, you're going to have financial stability even as a side pocket job. And here's the thing. Even if you keep that 9-to-5 job, a side business will help you be in control, right? Look at inflation going up, right? It's going to also provide an added income using a skill that you have or that you're looking to develop. If you're looking to develop skills as a grant writer, that you can definitely always have side income. You can always make income from this skill because we just saw it's needed. There's money out there. There's nonprofits out there, and there is a gap. There's not enough grant writers. People will ask you to write grants, okay? So you need to get set up so you know how to charge, write a proposal, and all of that. So this can, even as a side job, even if you're just doing it just to make a little income, to take one client a year, if you are set up, you all of a sudden are more in control of your future, and you're just going to feel more comfortable because you know if anything goes sideways, you have something set up that can bring in income and you can control that. All right, and that is power. That's going to help you maybe say no to a toxic workplace. That might help you have a conversation and ask for a raise and give you confidence because you know you have something to lean back on if you don't get that raise, right? So it can give you a lot if you have something on the side that you know can generate income and that you are in charge of and not somebody else dictating your future. Any job can feel really secure, but I can't tell you the number of people that I have known that have gone through programs who have gotten fired, laid off, a grant didn't get awarded, right? That paid for their job, whatever the case. And then they were like, oh, this is the worst as a grant writer. If your boss is saying, we'll keep you on as an employee if the grant that you write keeps getting awarded to pay for your salary. Ugh, how toxic is that, right? That's super toxic, but we accept it all the time. Why? We can step into more power when we understand and we already have something set up. Even like I said, one client, right? Even if you have no clients, you got it set up so you are ready to do so. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about that. Getting laid off, budget cuts, grants not getting awarded, inflation. These are all things I've seen. These are all things that was not prepared. We're not prepared, Holly, right? And all of a sudden, now I'm jumping in to be a freelance grant writer because of all these things. And maybe it takes me a couple more steps to do because now this happened, right? So getting fired, quitting your job. Maybe you finally got frustrated and fed up with that toxic work environment. What about just personal reasons? Maybe you are a caregiver suddenly, right? Maybe something happens. Maybe you have a child, maybe all the things, right, that go on in life, and you need to have more flexibility in your schedule and for your life. So these are all reasons, and there's so many more that are a part of why I really believe that people should have something set up on the side of a business. And you as a grant writer, there is no better business than being a freelance grant writer. Right? No better business, because that is a skill that you already have, you can bring to the table. You can create income like that because of that skill. It's not you have to learn a whole new skill. All you need to do is learn how to set up a business and run a business. Okay. All right. So another reason why freelance grant writer will give you stability and control. So there's a lot of culture shift going on right now, right? Freelancing is actually becoming more of the norm. And I remember seeing this stat. This was a stat I saw actually before the pandemic, was by 2030, 80% of the global workforce will be freelancers. That sounded like a fantasy. And I was like, are you sure? Like, who's doing this research? Then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so spot on. That's happening, right? Definitely there's a huge culture shift going on right now in the way we work and the way we operate. Even me and Ryan and Mandy were on before in the green room before this kicked off, and Mia's in Serbia, Ryan's in Canada, I'm over here in Guam, Mandy's in North Carolina, and we're all like having this conversation, right? This is becoming the norm. And for you as a freelance grant writer, that's great. I remember in my freelance grant writing business back in 2007, and I was working in Kuwait at the time. I was living in Kuwait, freelancing for working online, writing grants for people in the States and for people in different areas around the world. And it was still acceptable, but think about how much more acceptable that is nowadays, right? How much easier that is. Freelancers on average earn $70,000 over once they get to 3 years of work. And that's just average. 53% of Gen Zs freelance. This is a huge culture shift, and it's very, sorry, I'm going to go back to that slide. It's very acceptable. And I can't say how nice this is from someone who has started way a long time ago, right? Online, doing an online business. And now it's just so easy. It's not, oh, where are you located? It's not, and even then it was just, you're working in a different state or whatever, a different place, and sending it at different times. And it was actually pretty good, but now it's become so much more acceptable to have the conversations and to pitch clients. All right, let's talk about this now. Strides are definitely changing within nonprofits too, right? Definitely there's more people working from home. We have more remote work. We have all of that. But the problem is within a nonprofit, if you are an employee, wages still are not going up in tandem with inflation, with a lot of other things. Nonprofits, some of them are pushing really hard to do 4-day work weeks and to do other types of things. And I really applaud them. And I think that's amazing. But it's still not the same as having your own flexibility completely in your own schedule. There's still a lot of poverty mindsets in nonprofits. Just drop in the chat if you ever notice poverty mindset in nonprofits, or maybe part of your fear is they're not going to pay me because they never have any money. Is that ringing anyone's bell in there? You can just put yes or no. Yep. Nicole says yep. Yeah, right. I'm going to show you in just a few minutes of why and how you can position yourself to ask or to get paid, and to convince them it's better to pay you as a freelancer than as an employee. Okay. Because there's definitely a poverty mindset, but that's something as a freelancer you educate your clients then, right? You show them the value. They will pay for things if they know they're needed. You just have to show them and they know that they're needed, right? But within nonprofits, I do have to say the relationship is different as an employee and as a freelancer. If anyone's experienced that, please put it in the chat, because that's such a big thing. As an employee, as a grant writer employee in a nonprofit, my relationship with an executive director is very different than me as a freelance grant writer coming to the table. When I'm coming to the table as a freelance grant writer, I'm sitting at the same table. I'm leading the meetings. That's that. When I'm an employee grant writer, I'm down the hierarchical chain like this, right? There is definitely a different shift in that relationship and where you are. Okay, so now let's talk about why can you as a freelance grant writer still get work done? They have poverty mindset. If they have all these issues going on, why would they even hire you, right? Let's start asking those questions. It's because they still need you. We saw that. There's still grants out there. There's work out there. They need you. Nonprofits can budget for you as a freelance grant writer versus a salaried grant writer. Think about that. As a salaried grant writer, they have to think about long-term hiring, all of the stuff that goes with hiring. And if you are owning a business right now, you understand hiring an employee and hiring a consultant, totally different ballgame, right? So, and like I said, you have a different position as a freelance professional with the executive director, right? So you're going to be able to educate them a lot more on why they need you and come to the table with that. So let's now break it down, because I know a lot of you are like, okay, freelancer versus salaried. Why would they hire you over a salaried person? Especially if you looked at a salaried person, they might be getting $35 an hour, and you're sitting there going, well, my services are probably going to add up to more than that. Not that we recommend hourly charging, but you might be trying to set up some of your services based on an hourly pricing. Don't ever take the hourly pricing as a salary person as yours, okay, to figure that price out. Don't do it. All right. And here's why, even if your pricing is much higher, it looks higher than a salaried person, it might not really be. The thing is executive directors, especially if you are one, you can definitely chime in on this if you're an ED. They don't have to worry about forever payroll with a consultant or a freelancer versus a salaried person. When you're hiring a salaried person, you're thinking about how am I going to create culture and keep them on long-term and and onboarding them and all of the things that go with forever payroll. They don't have to train you to write grants. You're coming in saying, I know how to write grants, or you're going to teach yourself, right? And then you're going to learn how to do it, okay? They don't have to manage you. That's one of the biggest things. They do not have to manage you. Managing someone, it takes a special skill, and that's a lot of work, right? They do not have to manage you as a grant writer, and that's a huge amount of work off their plate. They don't have to pay for an office, a computer, tech, all of the things that cost for an employee, and that can be quite expensive, especially in cities where rental and all of that is quite high. They don't have to pay for your benefits, right? I mean, they're going to pay for your benefits because you're going to put it in your pricing, but it's not coming directly out of like their own health benefits, all the things that they have to do, right? That's going to be your expense, and that's why you need to charge more as well. But that's not incorporated like on top of it, and they're on the forever thing, right? They don't need to pay for your holidays. You can actually save them so much money because you're going to be focusing on writing grants. You're going to be focusing on your job so they can do their job. An employee is somebody else they have to manage and they have to do all of this for, right? That is one of the reasons that you can step boldly in. They need you already. We know that, right? Now you can step boldly in and say, yeah, but you don't need me as an employee. You need me as a freelancer. This is why, okay? So, and also stop thinking that they can't pay you. Stop thinking they can't pay you. They can pay if they can figure it out. They have board people on their board. They have people in their community. They have ways to fundraise. They have ways to pay you since they really do need you. All right. So here, let's continue this conversation a little bit more. You're also going to do a specific set of deliverables, right, that have very specific benefits and features. So instead of all the list of an employee gets, they get all the and other as needed, right? You're not going to do as other as needed. You're going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be very, very clear. They can also budget for that scope of work. Like I said, as an employee, there's a lot of added costs that go into that. And it can be very hard to get funding to pay for personnel. But if they're paying you for a certain scope of work, that can be a part of their budget that they can actually budget for, prepare for, and all of that. And here's the beautiful part. You're going to focus exclusively on that scope of work, writing X number of grants, finding X number of grants, whatever that is, right? You're going to be very clear about what you do, or like Deb does, right? She's going to do grant research packages and maybe find a certain number of grants that you're not going to get paid while you talk to your coworkers around the cooler, attending meetings that have nothing to do, and doing all other things is necessary, but they're really not necessary, and they're still paying you to do it. You're not going to do that. You're going to do what's on your deliverables, and that's what you're going to focus on, and that is powerful. You're going to do the work that needs to get it done. You're going to write grants, because a lot of times they're going to hire a salaried grant writer, and even if you're a grant writer in a nonprofit, you're going to resonate with that. You're doing a lot of other stuff besides writing grants. Writing grants might actually be one of the last things on your to-do list. They're also piling on all the other stuff. Maybe you're also a case manager and you're doing this and you're doing that, right? So the ability for you to even do your job can be very difficult. But when you're a freelancer, that's all you're doing is what you set out in your scope of work. That is super powerful, and it makes you more exclusive. It also makes you more of an expert because that's what you can focus on. All right, so let's look at Dr. Omotola Akinsola. She was in our Freelance Grant Writer Academy. So just so you can kind of see this as well, she also operates a nonprofit in Nigeria, and she was teaching in the United States. She wanted to earn more money for her family and serve more nonprofits, right? So she was like, is this even possible? Well, she was working full-time as a professor, and she knew she wanted to start something that gave her more flexibility and potential to increase her income. So she started, and within 8 months, she was able to increase her revenue 1,900%. She earned her $50,000. She was able to increase her investment by 1,900%, sorry. And she was able to really start doing it. Now she also creates products so she can serve more nonprofits in Nigeria at their price point. And that was able to help her scale her business. So once again, I'm just dropping in some case studies so you can see it's possible. And these people are doing it. They are running their freelance grant writing businesses, and they're creating more stability and control with their schedule and what they actually want to do, right? So let's go ahead and look at our last point of the day. So now our last point is freelance grant writer will also give you freedom and revenue, right? So we looked at it and said, it's always in demand. Grant writing is always in demand. It's going to give you stability, right? And now it's also going to create revenue and freedom for you. And this is why you must start a freelance grant writing business. Okay. So some of you might be in the military, you might be an expat, you might be living abroad. You might need to be more flexible. Maybe your spouse just moves a lot in the United States or within whatever country you live in, right? And you are constantly uprooting and having to start a new job. By the time you find a job is when you move again, right? Like it can be extremely frustrating. or you're just living abroad, right? So there's different ways. Maybe you like to travel, right? Maybe you want to move around more and just have more flexibility, or maybe you just want to work from your home. And that's what really freelancing can do for you, and specifically with your skill at grant writing, freelance grant writing, you can have the ability to be very flexible and to have more freedom, not only in your geographical location, but also in your day-to-day schedule. I know a lot of people that join my programs, they like to be there to pick up the kids after school. They like to not feel guilty if their kid is homesick and they can't go to work, right? Because they can be at home and work. I've heard that so many times, right? Even if you can get out of work, it's the guilt. It's how much time can you take off? It's the, kind of like that soft aggression at work over those types of things, or maybe you're caregiving, etc. Right? So if you want to go full time, that's definitely an opportunity as well. And just to show you where I've lived, because I did mention I lived abroad, I've lived in Brussels doing grant writing. I did my master's there and did grant writing on the side. I've lived in Kuwait, Abu Dhabi. I've traveled to Portugal, Indonesia. I've worked all around the world and have done grant writing as an income. And it has been absolutely amazing. Like I said, this is even before virtual work was so pervasive. And now it's totally it's just a thing that we all do. So it's extremely acceptable and easier to do now. Everybody knows Zoom and all of that for meetings. But this is definitely something I've experienced, and it's people in my programs that have experienced. So it's definitely something that you can do if you want to create more freedom in your life, if you want to create more revenue and more stability. And just one more case study as well as Ollie. She is actually, I love Alejandra, she is based in Mexico, and she's been able to, she was in Mexico City. She got let go of a job. She got fired, right? But the result is now she was like, that was the best thing that happened, because now it forced me to go full time into my business. And now I can have a schedule and I can work around my kids. I can pick them up. We can travel more, etc. She works with international clients. So it's not just you have to be here based in the United States. She definitely lives there. She in Mexico City and has been able to focus on nonprofits in the area she lives in, right? In Central America, in Mexico. And she's also niched down to environmental programs. So once again, we're seeing her passion all about the environment and the ecosystem, especially where she lives. And she's been able to work on her business, doing what she loves in the cause area that she loves, in the geographic area that she loves, and it's been able to create revenue and freedom for her life. So, and she's able to set her own rates now. So getting fired was one of the best things that ever happened to her, because she was able to now live the life that brings her joy, which is amazing. So definitely, and these are a lot of people. I just wanted to show these real quick to you. I'm not going to read these, but just so you can see, yes, people are able to live these lives. People are able to live their life that they want to, with joy, with freedom, being able to create their own rates, being able to create more freedom in their lives. Here's Ollie again. She's awesome. She's been able to triple her prices, right? So these are ways of showing you it's not only possible, people are doing it. People are doing it right now, right? So let's go ahead and review. Grant writing is a skill that is always in demand. Freelance grant writing will give you stability and control. I know everyone says a job will give you stability and control, but I totally am firm freelancing will do that for you, because there's so many things that can go sideways in a job. You can keep that job. Yes, you can keep that, and you can have that every 2-week paycheck. You can look at them as your VIP client, and then you can have one on the side with your business, and that's going to create more stability and control for you. It's also going to provide more freedom and revenue for you, and you can see so many people are doing it. So I just wanted to give you the ability to really see that and believe it, and to know that it's possible. So have you guys gotten at least one golden nugget out of today and starting a freelance grant writing business? Have I delivered? Please put it in the chat. I would love to see what your takeaway was today. Okay, so we're seeing that. And then of course I have a free checklist. So if you want to go ahead and grab the free checklist to set up a freelance grant writing business, go ahead and check it out. We also have a webinar coming up if you want to join that as well. And I just want to thank Instrumentl for this time. And I also want to go ahead and take questions now. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. and I'm going to open it up to some questions.
Thank you so much, Holly, for the amazing presentation. Ryan, have you taken some questions from the chat during the presentation? If you want to call them out.
Oh man, Holly, we have so many questions. Where to start? First off, great presentation, tons of value there. One of the questions we got from Christopher from Riverside Hawks, he asked, is it a conflict of interest to work full-time writing grants for your job and then be asked by a similar organization to help them? He asks, is it legal or ethical, or does it need to be another industry? Wonder if you can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do it. And I always like to be transparent. If you're working for someone still and you think there might be a conflict of interest, is to be transparent, right? And I think that's as good as it gets. But if you're competing for the exact same grant, then I would say be transparent. But if it's just like the Department of Education, like there's so many grants under that, as you know, in Instrumentl, right? If you underneath it, a certain grant funder, there may be multiple grants. So that's okay, but I do say just be transparent if you are writing for the exact same grant, right? So that would be something to be aware of.
Great. We've got lots of other questions here of how to pick. One question that was kind of blowing up, lots of responses in the thread, was around certifications, grant writing certificates. Are they worth it? Should they be joining the Grant Writers Association? We'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I actually have a lot of thoughts around that. And I have a whole podcast, and I will dig it up, Ryan, and share it on why you might want to have a certification and why you might not need to have a certification. So honestly, writing grants is the best way to get credentialed, is to write grants. Many thumbs up that. So you want to write grants. Now you might want to get a grant writing certification just for your own confidence and to know you're doing it right and for internal reasons. But please don't just get a grant writing certificate for external certifications. And what I mean by that is to feel like I'm legit now, or people will hire me just because I have that, I just have that in my signature or whatever. And that can be helpful. And if that's what you're doing it for internally, then go for it. But honestly, nonprofits don't even know what those certifications mean. So I do want to put that out there. Like sometimes you can be like, I spent, all this money and all this thing just to get this thing, and you know how to write grants. Do you really need that? A lot of times we just need to educate our clients. It's really about what you think is good for you. So yes, there are internal reasons and there are some external reasons, but I would like for you to look at your budget, and I would like for you to look at what the reasons are for that. And I will definitely drop that podcast when I have a minute to find it. I'll drop it in the link here because I'm going to be hanging out for Mandy's. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll keep rolling with the questions because there's so many that are just filling up the chat. There's been a couple questions about rates. We'd love to get your advice on that. How do you set rates? Should it be a fixed fee or percentage of the money raised? I think you mentioned that during your presentation a bit. Love to kind of rehash that a bit.
Yeah, so I'm definitely more of a firm believer in package rates, retainer rates, that sort of, right? And we actually at the Nonprofit Consulting Conference, I just did a whole session on value-based pricing. So really a firm believer in that. If you are looking at commissions, that is unethical. I just need to throw that out here. And what I mean by that is, say you wrote a grant for 100,000, and this is a common myth. Urban myth, I like to call it, among nonprofits. They say, oh, you can write a grant and we'll just pay you from the grant if it gets awarded. So if it's 100,000, we'll give you 10%, you get 10,000, win-win. You don't have to pay any money up front, and it'll make you write harder and do a better job because you want. Okay, for one thing, that's so unethical, it's not even allowable. For another thing, you can't even put that in budgets. You can't pay out something that was done before the grant was awarded and the contract was signed. And it's against so many things. So you can't do that. You just have to say, no, and you can refer, I have a podcast on that because I get that question a lot, that I can drop in here so you know exactly how to respond to that, because you're going to want to go into client discovery calls and have it up your sleeve. You're going to want to have that ammunition behind you on how you respond to that. But you can definitely set up rates. I do encourage you to know what that hourly amount is. But as far as charging hourly, that's something some people like to do. It's also something that could, as you get better, you'll get paid less because you'll get faster and then you'll get paid less. So there's definitely things that we need to talk about that. And I go over that in detail in my programs. because that's something that I want to look at with you, with what kind of services you're developing, how you're going to price, how you're going to talk to clients, etc. It's not, I can't just say, oh, charge this amount and have it a cookie cutter fee either. It depends on a lot of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, switching gears a bit. Going back to your talk about AI. We had a question from Aaron in the chat that kind of blew up. Should you disclose to clients that you're using AI to help you write grants?
I don't think so. I mean, as long as you're doing it ethically, that way, you can also tell them that you're using Google. You know, that's where we're getting at this point in time with that. And as long as you're checking your work like you should be, you know, what's the difference right now? It's like an assistant, right? But you have to check your work. One thing I do want to say about AI that I didn't mention earlier, but we did talk about in the podcast in detail with Phil, the one I shared with you guys, is he did this really break down and say, it looks like AI gives you really good stats. And I wanted to talk to you guys specifically about this, okay? Because you guys do research, right? One of the hardest things, or not hardest, one of the most time-consuming things in writing a grant is doing the research and getting all the stats and citations and all of that, right, to prove your needs statement. And you would think, oh, that would be a great use of AI. And especially it spits out these really beautiful citations and everything in like 2 seconds. You're like, oh my God, that took me hours before. This is amazing. But when I talked to Phil, he actually said AI is really bad about that. And they actually give you fake ones. So if you start testing those links, I bet you 9 out of 10 don't even work. It's giving you fake citations. So you need to be aware of that. What he did say is it's good at writing things and like cleaning up grammar and like all of that. The first, what we both recommend is writing that master grant template. First, you do the first grant, and then it can help you write quicker grants from there on out. Using you can put in your grant that you wrote to answer the new questions to the new LOIs or RFPs or that kind of thing. So you're using your data and your information.
Amazing. So many questions. All right, pop your questions in there, folks, still, if you have them. Trying to keep on top of all of this. We had a question about educating clients who are newer to working with freelancers. What should they expect about winning grants? How should they manage that conversation when they ask them, how many grants can we expect to win if we start working with you?
Okay, well, you don't want to talk about that. That's one of the things that we really want to look at in deliverables. Yeah, winning some grants can definitely be an ROI, right, on that. But it seems like the first conversation and the only conversation that especially inexperienced nonprofits want to have. And it can suck us down as freelancers to be like, oh, I'm going to base all of my credibility and shame around a grant writing success. If I wrote one grant for $5,000 and it got awarded, my success rate would be 100%. Oh, whew. And if I wrote 100 grants and 80 got awarded and I got $500 million, I would only have an 80% success rate, right? We can't base our success, we can't base our deliverables just around success rate. Success rate, they don't even know what a good success rate is. And I said, oh, my success rate is 89%. Do you guys even know if that's good? Is that good, right? Like, what's even good, right? So you need to know, like, yeah, that probably is good. And it really depends on the thing. So I really say, let's start changing the conversation and educating our clients. And we can start saying, this is what I'm going to deliver. I'm going to create a master grant application. That's now going to be a product. I'm going to create a master budget. I'm going to research and find X number of funding sources for you. I'm going to submit to X number of funding sources. You want to give deliverables that you can actually check, done, 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 done. Money is just one of the outcomes. Money is just it's not the only one. And it's not the most important one, quite honestly. You are developing a business plan when you're writing a grant. You are helping them get clear on programming and running their mission. You are doing so many other things that are very powerful that they can create funding. Even that grant, I even have a podcast on what to say when your grant doesn't get awarded, how you can still say it's a win, right? You can get feedback from that grant. You can submit it again. You can take all that research that you did, all the time that you put in that needs section and all the things, you can put that into statistics on your website, into newsletters for your clients, social media posts, create a press release, write a corporate solicitation letter. You can repurpose a grant like nothing else because it's so comprehensive, right? So there are so many different deliverables that you can actually put in your contract, that's not about the funding. It's not about the funding, right? Will those things lead and help get more funding? Absolutely. Can you promise funding? No, you can never guarantee anything. That it might be the nonprofit's a mess and that funding source was a beautiful grant, but they've only been around for a year. They're not going to give to them. There's so many things that are out of your hands that I also write about, and you have as checklists that we have in our program that you can actually have a script on how to respond to all of these very commonly asked questions that we just need to provide more education for the nonprofits. And not to shame them, they just don't, it's just a part of the urban myth, it's part of the poverty mindset, and it's a part of our work to really up-level the nonprofit experience and let them know the value of our work.
Amazing. I'd like to switch gears a bit. I think since we have a few minutes here to take a minute to give some advice to a specific person for their specific context. Dale had a really great question that I think would be applicable to a lot of people here. So let me just read it all out because he's got a lot of great context in it. He says, my wife is on a board as a volunteer, unpaid position. Their tradition is to use family members of board members as unpaid help. Mount a sign, build shelves for books, and yes, write grant proposals. My view is that it would be acceptable for the board to hire or contract with his grant writing consultancy to do extensive grant writing using Instrumentl. How best would he pitch this to the board to get acceptance?
Yeah, I mean, he could definitely pitch it. His wife, I mean, I would just say she would have to excuse herself from the conversation and the vote. So it's not a conflict of interest. And that's as simple as it can be. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that too. Like, especially if it's your business, you know, like you want to get paid for your business. If you weren't a freelance grant writer, you weren't a grant writer, right? And you just knew how to write grants, and that's okay when you don't bring your expertise like that as a donation, but it's like when it's your business, that's when a lot of people get asked. And it's up to you too. If you like on the other side of that, you might want to say, I'll write one pro bono grant a year to a cause area I'm really excited about, but have boundaries, right? Because otherwise, one of the biggest questions you're going to get in discovery calls too is, can you write grants for free? And we have a script to respond to that too in a very educated way. So yeah, you don't sound awful, but you also keep your value and boundaries in place. But yeah, have his wife excuse herself and vote. Yeah.
Great. Okay, we've got Hesper's pinging me to resurface a question, so I'll go to it. This may be I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So if you have one, get it in the chat, try and get my attention. She asks, any tips on how we can go about efficiently working our full-time jobs and managing our freelance side hustle? She says, we've had an incredibly busy year, which is a blessing, but it would be a challenge to meet outside deadlines.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's a whole system that you can do, and we work on that in our programs. But part of that is also, are you charging enough for your capacity? Do you need to increase your rates? Do you need to hire? Do you need to create more SOPs? Do you need to automate some things? So there's definitely ways that you can look at to say, we need to maybe just streamline some of the services that we're doing and really looking what is the money and the joy that's coming in the door that we want to do and spend our time on. How can we clean up any time around that? That could be hiring, it could be delegating, it could be automating, right? Or it could be eliminating. So you can look at those kind of 4 factors to really figure out how you can clean that up and make it more economical and for your time and just prosperous and a more joyful way to run your business while you're working full time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, any last questions, folks? Got Mandy Pierce coming up next. All right, I would say last question. Mia, let me know if we're going over. I'll let you keep track of the clock. Moon Goldstein, last question. One of the contracts I'm working with does not seem ready to accept grants. Their annual budget was $400 in the red last year. They have a severe lack of internal documentation. They have also no data collected internally, and their books have lots of gaps. I don't feel they're ready to accept grants, but I'm a novice. How should I best advise them moving forward? I don't want to waste money. I don't want them to waste money with me if they won't win.
Ah, that's good. Yeah, and being a consultant, that's part of what you have to do too, is like, are you grant ready? And if you want to help prepare them, that can be a service that you provide, is to help them get grant ready. Or you can refer them to people like Mandy Pierce, who does strategic planning, right? So to help them get grant ready. So there's definitely ways that you can do that, where you can say, and that can be part of your onboarding. It can be also a part of just your intake form to figure out what service is best for them. And if they're not ready for grants yet, what can you do if you want as a service to help prepare them? We have a nonprofit wellness audit that we do in our program to help people get, red flags eliminated, get their board running, get all of those types of things, like a little bit more actionable, so you can feel more confident in actually writing grants. Because that's the thing that sometimes I have to say, no, you're not ready for it. You got to do this first. And that's part of your role as a consultant, right? That's why they're paying you.
Nice, great. Thank you so much, Holly, for all your answers. I think this was a really good session. I learned a lot of myself. Yeah. Okay, so Ryan, you can stop recording now so that we can wrap up this session, and we will be moving